Hello there, and welcome to episode 29 of There's Still Time, the AFTN podcast. We're doing a different kind of post-game podcast. With the Whitecaps season over, we're doing a Canadian women's team post-game podcast. I'm your host, Michael McCall, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Steve Pander.
Hello to everyone out there.
So hopefully we can stay awake during this podcast, because I don't know about you, Steve, but I found that one of the worst and most boring games of football I've seen all year.
Well, there were moments when there was some attack in the beginning of the game and in the second half, but yeah, for the most part, and when we were talking about the podcast itself, you were worried about saying that and being branded like as being sexist or something like that, but then we'll hear later from John Herdman that he kind of agreed with you about the whole performance.
Yeah, he really wasn't happy, which we will hear from John later on. But it started off lively enough. The opening 10-15 minutes, I thought were pretty entertaining.
They were going back and forth and
Mexico
everything.
were quite impressive in that first opening period.
They've quite closed the gap over what we saw them during the qualifying for the Olympics when Canada won 3-0. So they've definitely closed the gap on Canada and are playing, or it could have been that Canada maybe took them lightly, which is a possibility because they feel they should be able to beat them. And
that's something else that John Herdman said post-game. What positives can you take from the game today? Was there any players that really stood out for you?
Well, I think that whenever Christine Sinclair steps on the field, she is usually above average, but she wasn't as good as what she normally is. She didn't carry the team.
I thought Mexico contained her really well, which is kind of worrying that if Mexico can do that, what some of the better nations are going to be able to do. Is she maybe getting a bit too old, or have they just kind of found her out a bit?
Yeah, it's troubling, but also you have to look at it that she doesn't have a regular partner, Melissa Tancredi, with her. There are some obviously issues of service from the wings, but those were issues before too, and she was able to perform. Maybe they need to build up the team a little bit more now because she is getting older. She went through a whole season with Portland, and she's going to have to deal with all this stuff too.
Was again, without going on about all the things that John Herdman said after the game, that was something that she mentioned as well, was they can't just keep relying on her. They have to get other people that's given her service. And obviously Tancredi's going to be missing till about June. And it's just, there doesn't seem to be a top level coming through that's banging the goals in.
No, and that's where he mentioned also in the interview, and we'll obviously play this again later, there are 3 or 4 players that he really wants, that he thinks can make a difference for this team. And again, he said that there was just not enough people fighting for the game today. A couple other players, I think Diane Matheson showed a little bit here and there.
She was quite strong in the first half.
The second half, she went into the midfield, and that's why they had more possession in the midfield, I felt, because she was in there. She was controlling it, and that's where those couple players he's going to mention. A couple of those guys are women are wing players, and they've been forced to play Matheson on the wing, which has not helped them in possession in the middle of the pitch.
One woman who came on today in the first half, a very early substitution, was 16-year-old Sura Yeka.
Yeah, it was. I had never heard of her before, so it was interesting to see. And she actually pushed forward quite a bit on the right side. She's obviously got to work on her service. That was a little bit lacking, but that's something a 16-year-old can definitely work on as they grow on. But her attack mentality, going forward with the ball, she showed a couple of moves, connected well with the right winger. So overall, pretty good display. It's only her second appearance with the national team.
Of course, you've got the under-17 girls that have qualified now for the World Cup. So
yeah, she'll be a big part of that.
So there's definitely some talent coming through. So we've alluded a lot to what John Herdman said after the game. So let's just hear from John Herdman now.
I think on the game, frustrating more than anything. A couple of chances for both teams. I hate coming away from a football match when you've got 0-0 on the scoreline. It's just pretty unfootball-like. So for us, we'll be disappointed in that. But it tells you a bit of a story about what we need to add to this team. And I think outside of Christine, we have to bring back the likes of Tancredi as quickly as we can. Cara Lang's return. Jose Belanger, I think 3 players that could really add goals to this team at this stage. But some bright parts of the game. I thought some of the soccer the team played was very effective. I was impressed with Surieka. I mean, she brought a real bright spark, and if anything, she was pretty much showed the way in terms of a real positive attitude to really take it to Mexico, and I think a couple of players fed off her energy. So I think that was a real bright spark. We had some good moments. We're progressing. At times we were stringing 16, 17 passes together and finishing with a cross or a shot. So I'll take that at this stage, but still a long way off 2015. I mean, the approach was to attack down the flanks as much as we can and combine there. I thought the first 15 minutes we were in a good space. It looked like we were going to go on and really cause Mexico a bit of an upset, but it turned round that we just ran out of ideas. It just seemed that first half, I felt sorry for people watching at home or in the stand. It just wasn't an inspirational, exciting performance, and I think the players knew at half time people had paid some money to come and watch them play, given their Sundays up, and they had to give a bit more, and certainly I thought the second half showed you where I think this team can get to. There were some great passages of play, and I think the injection of Yeka was a big part of that, as well as the injection of people like Adriana Leon. I thought she had a really promising start. Look, you expect to beat Mexico, no disrespect. I mean, this is the 7th ranked team in the world, bronze medalists, and I still think we're 3 or 4 players missing to be that team again. And hopefully we can either find those players or get those players back. But I think the Mexicans were worth the score today. They weren't miles away from Canada, and yeah, they had 1 or 2 chances to sell. Thank God for Erin McLeod again, made some great saves first half. Today told us a story about players. That's what the game constantly does. Every time we play, it's a story, and you read into that what you want.
You improved your play in the second half. What do you attest that to?
Look, the ball speed was just so slow, and the team in possession, just out of possession defensively, just wasn't tight enough. It was almost like we thought this was going to be easy for some reason. I think the first 15 minutes we settled into an un-Canadian rhythm. We just lost the tempo and intensity, and I expect the team to be a little bit more imposing than that. So it was about tightening the team up. We showed them some video at half time about where the midfield players were picking the ball up. It was always in front of the whole Mexican team. We needed to pick it up in areas that caused them more problems. So adjusting that made a big difference, and they just moved it a lot more slicker across the width of the pitch. So yeah, I was happy with the second half. If it started like that, it could have been a different game.
Any update on Leanne Wilkinson?
No update. I've got no idea yet. We'll consult the medical team, but she's safe, so that's the main thing.
How do you feel about goalless shown into play in the first half?
Yeah, just okay. And that's been one of the challenges. We've thrown out. Look, I'm not going to lie about players. They've been given chances. I've brought in 13 new faces, and players have to rip the shirt off people to get in this squad. I mean, it's a bronze-winning medal team. We know that left-back position is an area we're trying to strengthen, and players, when they get that chance, have got to take it. So to go in and play just okay, it might be enough, it might not be. But at this stage, for me, it's not enough, and it's not enough for any player that comes on and just plays okay for Canada.
Hard question. Does it disappoint you when you don't see what you want to see from players when they're given that chance? Does that bother you as a coach?
Yeah, you're starting to see that, aren't you, in my body language. It's look, I just know how much that shirt is worth to people, and if you get a chance to play in front of 20,000 people who pay money to come and watch the team, I just expect people to, players to give everything they've physically got, mentally got. And look, you're either on or you're off, and you have bad days as players, and I'll accept that. But yeah, I think at this stage we just want more. That's the reality. We need more from players that are coming in and trying to grab shirts. I thought Adriana Leon was a great example of how to play your way into a team. I thought Surieka at 16 was a great example of how to play your way into a team. So I think, look, you're not singling players out today. I'm not trying to do that, but it's just knowing that if you're going to play for Canada, you better be bloody good and be good every game.
So that was a rather unhappy John Herdman there post-game. We'll hear now as well from a couple of the players, goalkeeper Erin McLeod and captain Christine Sinclair.
Today was just a lot more about process, and obviously we're trying to possess the ball a lot more, and getting our midfielders on the ball as much as we can. And to be honest, we prepared for Mexico. Basically, the only way they came at us, we weren't necessarily ready for, and it took us a while to adjust. But once we did, I thought in the second half we were playing really well, moving around, and I think overall, you obviously want to win, but the things that we were focused on, we worked on throughout the game. So I think we can all be pretty proud of that.
John said that he thought that in the first 15 minutes, he thought that you guys maybe thought it was going to be an easy game. Did you feel that looking at the team from
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we played in the qualifiers, they played basically in a deep block in the first half, and then they pressed us the second half. So we expected them to come out with a press, but they didn't. And the first 10 minutes, I thought it was going to be awesome. And then Mexico, they're a quality team and very crafty, and they kept coming at us in waves. So props to them.
Erin, did you talk about how well Sarah Yeka played when she came in the first half?
Yes, I'm very proud of Sarah. I remember in Edmonton, I asked her if she'd enjoyed the game, and she goes, "No, I didn't." And I'm like, "Why?" And she's like, "I was just too nervous." So today, I think she got the nerves, out of the way, and I thought she had a great performance. She is 16 years old, so I'm very excited. I think the whole team's excited to see, the future that this woman has.
I know yourself, you made a couple of big saves in the first half to keep your team in it. What do you talk about that?
Yeah, I think it's time for a lot of us older players to step up as leaders, and we are always aiming to keep the goals out of the net, and that's my job.
Disappointed. I actually think we might have played a little better than we did against South Korea, but yeah, we didn't bury the chances we got. Just disappointed we didn't finish one for the fans.
You had a few chances yourself. Do you feel a bit frustrated having that scored?
No, I mean, as a team, I think we're frustrated that we didn't score. Yeah, there are a few of us that had some pretty good chances. So, yeah, I think as a group, we're frustrated we didn't score.
So we're joined now in the podcast for someone that we've wanted to have on for all season. So I'm glad to welcome her now. You'll know her on Twitter as Har Journalist. Welcome, Har.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Really good, and you're our expert on the Canadian women's national team. You're the person that I go to for all my news. And thanks to your tweets today for actually letting me know who was coming on and who they were and all the stuff in the game. So you are a resident female football expert.
Thank you very much.
What did you make of the game today?
It was not a very pleasant game to watch. I thought throughout the 90 minutes, I didn't feel like anyone was going to score, maybe other than Christine Sinclair. There just wasn't a consistent threat throughout the game for either team. They got a few chances here or there, but both goalkeepers, Karina and Erin, were fantastic for Canada, and Cecilia Santiago, you could arguably say she was the player of the match.
Do you feel that possibly Canada underestimated Mexico because they'd beaten them quite comfortably in the Olympic qualifiers? They're ranked higher than them in the world. Do you think there was maybe an element that they just felt they had to turn up today and just get the win?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And talking to the players following the match, they disagreed. But if you watched the match and you've been to the training sessions, Canada's been in Vancouver since they beat Korea 3-0 last month. So they've had residency, they've had a lot of training, a lot of practices. They've had a lot of time to get familiar with each other and work together. Whereas Mexico, half the team arrived here on Saturday. They only had one practice in Vancouver, and Canada should have played a lot better. I felt that they should have at least scored a couple of goals on paper, but they just didn't have it today.
Do you feel that Mexico closed the gap on Canada a little bit since obviously the Olympic qualifying, or has it been? Do you think this is just an underperformance by Canada?
I think it's just an underperformance by Canada. They have a lot of great players. They have a key, strong core, center of the team, and I just think they underestimated the team. They didn't come out of the gate, ready to play. I thought they were slow. I thought for the second game in a row, they depended on Erin McLeod to come up with a few big saves. They just didn't have it.
Now, We heard from John Herdman earlier, and you alluded to it as well, and we talked about it at the start of the show. There isn't really, with Melissa Tancredi out at the moment, there's no one really up there supporting Christine Sinclair. From all the players that you've seen, because I know you follow the women's game at all levels, is there any players coming through that you think are going to make the breakthrough, that we're going to maybe see at the World Cup for Canada, playing up front and scoring goals for Canada?
Well, they're really relying heavily on Melissa Tancredi to be that person. And she's not involved with the team right now. She's in St. Louis doing her chiropractic degree. So John Herdman, he's had Adriana Leon in. He's had Brittany Baxter. Now that she's healthy, she can play with Christine. And really, injury has really derailed Chelsea Buckland, the Delta BC native who's had 2 ACL surgeries in the last 2 years. During the CONCACAF tournament, she was a great partner up top with Christine, and she's not there, so that's someone Canada doesn't have. And there's another player playing in the Australian Women's League right now, Christina Julian. She is also a forward, and so I think she's going to get a good chance to see if she can form some chemistry with Christine before the Women's World Cup.
Now, John mentioned that they're not going to be looking to bring any players in that unconfirmed tournament that's going to happen in December in South America. Do you know of any players those players that he mentioned, and maybe some others that could be those players that come up? Like, say, for example, a player that most Whitecaps fans know, Summer Clark. Do you somebody like that in the NCAA that could help him? Maybe not in December tournament, but maybe in 2014.
Well, they've got Kadisha Buchanan on defense.
Yeah.
She's also a university, and Summer Clark is a very interesting name. You heard a lot about her last year. And
Caleb's sister, for those that don't know.
I don't know what she's thinking. I don't know where she is, why she's not involved more.
Well, she's with LSU right now.
She is, but last year at the December camp.
Yeah, she pulled out of the camp.
She declined a camp invitation.
Yeah.
I asked John about that. He wasn't sure why, and he told me to go knock on her door and ask her, but we don't know what Summer Clark's thinking. We don't know if she wants to play for Canada internationally at the senior level, and she would be good for Canada to have.
Yeah. Could it be just maybe she's concentrating on college or something like that? She doesn't want to get involved in this right now.
It's possible.
Because Caleb obviously went to the national team recently, so it's not like the family's got something against the Canadian, program or whatever.
Well, maybe now with Caleb getting the senior call up, she's maybe going to feel more like coming into the setup.
Yeah, probably.
She's not going to get too many more opportunities with the World Cup 18 months away.
Now, talking of the World Cup that's coming up, this is our dress rehearsal really at BC Plays for the tournament that's going to get held here in 2015. Now, anyone that followed you, Har, on Twitter will have known that you were in Europe over this summer and you were over at the Euros there. How did you find that whole experience?
Yeah, I covered the UEFA Women's Euro 2013 in Sweden this summer. It was a great experience. It was phenomenal to watch all the European women's teams compete, and they've got a lot of really good teams over there. And coming into the tournament, I thought some of the bigger teams would do really well. Some of the smaller teams that are not as successful, I thought they would struggle a bit. But watching the tournament, the gap was closed a lot smaller than I anticipated. So it really is, almost any team can be beaten on any given day in women's football, except maybe our neighbours to the south.
So from the European teams that you saw at the tournament, is there any that you think are going to be real ones to watch when it comes to 2014? Now, obviously Scotland weren't at the Euros, but they're topping their group, so I'm tipping them as the team to watch. But from the teams that you saw, what European nations do you think are going to be big threats at the 2015 World Cup?
We've always got to go, I think, the big three: Sweden, Germany, France. Sweden's is getting older; they're getting up there.
But will they even be there? Because they're in Scotland's group, and Scotland's topping them just now.
Well, they've played more games than Sweden.
Just one. Anyways,
they've got Pia Sundhage at the helm, and she's a god in Sweden. She's really fighting the team. They're really gelling together with Pia as the coach. And they've got Lotta Schelin, Kosovari Aslani, and Caroline Seeger and Neela Fisher as the anchors back there. So the Sweden team's a very formidable opponent for the Women's World Cup if they make it. And France, they underperformed at the Euros. They got knocked out.
So the typical of the men's team a little bit. France. But they also, like, a lot of people said they underperformed at the bronze game against Canada
They
as
did.
well. Yeah.
They fired their coach Bruno Bini.
Yeah.
So they've got a new coach. Half the team plays for Olympique Lyon.
Okay.
So they've got great chemistry. They're always a threat. It's just whether they can, put it together and live up to the hype that they have created for themselves. I think the biggest threat for that tournament is going to be Germany out of Europe. I have to check. They've won the last 5 or 6 Euros in a row.
Yeah, which was very surprising that they didn't make the Olympics at all. I always thought that they would be in there. Obviously, something happened during the qualifying there.
And they had a lot of injuries at the Euro. So they had to bring in a lot of youth players, a lot of youngsters, and they had an opportunity to shine. And they won the tournament. Nadine Angerer I think she's the best goalkeeper in women's football. She stopped 2 PKs in that match, led her team to gold. With Germany, if they get an injury, a suspended player, or someone who can't, play the game, they just bring the next player up. It's like the men's team. There's no difference. They're just a machine. They just turn out great players, and I think they're going to be a huge threat to Canada, the U.S., Japan, anyone who makes it to that World Cup.
Now, how did you find the whole organisation of the Euros, and what was the press coverage like there? Was there a lot of interest from the media over there? Because I know it's still a growing sport in a lot of countries.
Press-wise, it was the most requested accreditation for a Women's Euro. They had the most fan support attendance-wise. They had television audiences, television cameras, in a lot of countries that they've not had before, so there was a lot of television coverage. So the press was very interested in the team. And in Sweden, they love women's football, so it was just an automatic that they would get behind the team and support the tournament, and that's just what happened. It followed.
Just the last thing we want to ask you, it's something which we spoke to Peter Montopoli about earlier, and we're going to play that in a few minutes for you. The whole fact that Canada doesn't have a professional women's team, club team. There's no Canadian teams in the NWSL, there's no professional women's teams in Canada. Do you think that's hurting the programme here? Do you think it's really strange that Canada's hosting a World Cup and there's no professional women's team or women's league in this country?
I don't think it's strange, but I will say I definitely do think it hurts the development of the Canadian players on Canada. If you have to go and play in the NWSL or overseas in Sweden or another league, you're not exactly going to get first minutes all the time unless you're a Christine Sinclair or a well-known player. I was talking to John Herdman this week at training, and I know with the Mexican coach, he's been unhappy with the amount of playing time his players received in the NWSL this past season. And John's not had a problem with the playing time. He's left it up to the NWSL coaches, but it would be great if Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, if they had some sort of a women's professional team situated in the city. A lot of the women's players for Canada, they make Vancouver their off-season home.
Yeah. A
lot have played for the Vancouver Whitecaps in previous years. I would think it would be a no-brainer to have a women's team here, but money talks, and if you don't have an ownership that wants to bring a team and build that, then it's not going to happen.
In my personal feeling, and he mentioned this too, that I think they want to see what happens after the World Cup, and they want to see that interest grow. The Whitecaps have done something like this. I think it was the A-League before, and I think it was a little bit their fault too, because they kept moving stuff around from stadium to stadium, but then make one thing central. But I think they just want to get this growing through the World Cup, and then maybe bring something in later, because they've shown, and they still have that elite program for girls. So I think they probably still do something with that.
The Whitecaps played in the PCSL this year, and they kind of walked it. They won the honours in it, and they were beating teams by huge margins. So I don't see how that really helps the girls' development to be doing that. But anyway, thanks for joining us, Har. It's been great to talk to you. We will have you on more next year. And for everyone, follow her on Twitter @HarJournalist. That's HAR. So as we mentioned there, we spoke to Peter Montopoli, who is the CEO of the National Organising Committee for the FIFA 2015 World Cup. He was at BC Place for the Canada-Mexico game, and he spoke to media at half-time. So this is some of the questions that we and some of the other people asked him. So he's going to talk about the state of BC Place turf pitches in general at the World Cup, and the fact that there is no Canadian teams in the NWSL. So this is Peter Montopoli.
Sure, this is something that has come to your attention. Almost 4,000 women, mostly women, have signed a petition that the World Cup in 2015 be played on grass, not turf. Is this something that you have any concerns about?
No. Again, I think we've stated it many times. A couple of things. One is we've bid on the specifications that we put in many years ago. We always said it would be artificial turf, and we're continuing with that. We're working with FIFA to ensure that they're 2-star quality, which is the requirement. And really, when we look at our country, that's really what we have to offer, and that's what we bid against. So we're very comfortable in what we're providing for the competition.
When you say that's what we have to offer, we can't offer grass?
No, in the specifications that we have with the stadiums, the way it's configured, financially and timing, it is the alternative that we presented to FIFA, and FIFA had accepted. So FIFA and ourselves are comfortable in the position that we have.
Is the plan just now to replace the turf at BC
Not at this point in time, no.
Because players like Robbie Keane have been really critical of the turf here.
He may have. At this point in time, we don't have the plans to change the turf here, but we'll be reviewing it each and every year prior to coming in 2015 to see if anything has to be modified, if there has to be any changes.
BC Place isn't one of the venues for the 2014 World Cup. Are there plans to have other events here before the main World Cup kicks off?
Yeah, that'll be part of the plans. We're trying to take a look at what are the best opponents to bring to the community here and the availability of the stadium. So we'll have further announcements as we get into 2014.
Are you hoping to get any professional women's clubs in Canada to help out with that process?
In terms of being part of the NWSL?
Yeah.
Well, it would be great if we could convince some owners to do that, but we're really not in that position now. We're probably, to be fair, looking at the conclusion of 2015 and the success of the FIFA Women's World Cup 2015 to garner that interest from ownership groups to say, hey, playing in Canada as part of a Canadian Women's Professional League is a viable financial opportunity, and I think we'll get there when we get to 2015. Yeah, we hope so anyways. Yeah.
Is it not somewhat strange that Canada is hosting a World Cup but there's no professional women's teams in the country?
I don't know. I wouldn't look at it that way. Here's why. We might be able to break an attendance record for FIFA with 1.5 million spectators, the largest attended FIFA event for the FIFA Women's World Cup Canada 2015. And by doing so, we would have larger attendance in the Winter Olympics, and then the outcome of that will be that we might have professional soccer in our country. It's hard to say prior to that, but I'm almost convinced following that there will be great excitement for women's soccer, and I would say professional soccer would be a successful outcome of that.
If you were to have what they call a big, hairy, audacious goal and vision for 2015, what would that be?
Well, I kind of just said it. Right now, if we can, get 1.5 million spectators to come to 52 matches across the country, it's almost an approximate attendance of 30,000 people per match. Our country firmly engaged in the sport of soccer, male and female, youth, senior, inspiring a whole generation like the Vancouver Olympics did, with attendance of 1.5 million, millions of people watching on TV, coming to Canada, the world coming to Canada, Canada playing in the championship match here at BC Place. I think that would be a great success for all of us.
So we're going to end this week's show moving away from the Canadian women's national team and onto some little Vancouver Whitecaps tidbits. Although there's not really too much to talk about, but of course the main talking point, Steve, is still who is going to be the new manager and when is it going to be announced?
Yeah, and we got a little bit of information from an unlikely source, Prince George Citizen. There was an article written up. It was written by Jason Peters. It was basically an overall on the Whitecaps end of season stuff. But there was an interesting quote at the end of the article, and I'll just read it verbatim here. When Bobby Lenarduzzi was asked about the coaching search, he said, quote, "We have one person in particular that we're trying to confirm, and there are others, if he is not able to do so, that we think can do a good job for us."
So it certainly sounds like they've made their mind up who they want.
Who their number one choice is now.
And they're just waiting to see if that person actually wants a job.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an interesting way of looking at it as well, because why is the person not jumping at the chance to take the job? Is that person torn, or is there other commitments? Is there other offers to this person and they're just kind of weighing it up?
Yeah.
Would the Whitecaps then be the first choice for this person?
Yeah.
We can only speculate who it is. So, of course, Carol Robinson is still the person that lots of people are naming for the job. But, I mean, Carol is going to have offers from elsewhere in Europe, in MLS. And if the Whitecaps don't act quickly, and if Carol Robinson's to get what they want, they might not even get Carol.
Yeah, because Robinson could think that, it's not going to happen. And you don't, if there's a better, not even a better offer, but if there's an offer on the table, you have to think of your family. And even if it means moving and everything like that, you have to take it if it's a good enough offer and more secure in this way.
Definitely. So we'll see how that plays out. I feel like we're going to hear within the next fortnight as to what's happening with the Whitecaps. So we'll keep you posted on that. So just before we wrap up, I think we just have to say a big well done to the SFU clan, reaching the Final Four for the second year running. 5-0 demolition of Regis University in Colorado today.
Yes, and I have always hated Regis. I prefer Michael Strahan over Regis any day of the week.
Well, they're also called Regis Rangers. Anything called Rangers, I'm glad they got humped.
Yeah, so it was a huge 5-0 victory. It was a big.
It just shows how farcical that fourth ranking, which we said all along, the fourth ranking of SFU, they should never have been ranked fourth in the West. They've reached the Final Four. Well done to Alan Koch and the boys. We're going to be doing Clan Week again next week, which was popular last year. So watch out for that.
Remember, SFU clan, not the other clan.
Clan with a C. So that's all for this week's show. So thanks to Har for joining us earlier. Steve, tell us where we can find you on Twitter.
You can find me at Whitecaps Beat, and obviously writing for AFTN on Canadian Soccer News.
And you can find all our stuff on Canadian Soccer News at aftn.ca. I'm Michael McCall. You can find me on Twitter at AFTN Canada. And if you want to drop us a line about anything, aftncanada@hotmail.com. So until next time, thanks for listening, take care, and mon the Caps.
One day I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.